The World Wrestling Federation. For over 50 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment.
What's our name?
Well, men on the
Are you ready?
Well,
Here we go. Men on a mission. Bam, bang, boom. Here we go.
Welcome to the New Generation podcast on the Backbone Wrestling Network. I'm Tim Slomka.
I'm JP.
Thanks for joining us again. As always, we're on a journey to relive the New Generation era, to find the best and some of the worst of a wrestling time period often forgotten. From Bret and Shawn at Survivor Series 92 to Bret and Shawn at Survivor Series 97, look beyond the pay-per-views, examine the weekly TV, see what worked, what could have worked, and what failed. JP, how's it going real quick?
I mean, it's going, man. I think I've aged about 5 years in the past week, but as I'm sure everyone knows, the hurricane hit here last week, so definitely a life-altering experience. You know, like you live in Florida most of your life, and you're used to hurricanes every year, right? Like, it's not. I know people from like out of this region are like, that sounds crazy, but you get them, like you get the outer bands and stuff, and it does some damage. It's nothing to play around with, but like this one was dead on, like literally into my specific town. Like the eye of it crossed over my like my exact neighborhood even. Crazy shit. Like, I mean, like this is, I don't even know how to explain it. Like it was so, I think because it stayed over us for like 5 hours straight of like over 100-mile-per-hour winds. It was just intense shit, man. Like it'll just make you think differently. I don't know.
Yeah, so we're going to do things this time a little bit different. JP's going to give us his weather update first, as always. And then we were talking about doing this for a while, and finally this kind of the power outage and gave us a little time that we're going to kind of review, the other promotions as we head into 1995. Something we've talked about doing for a little bit, and then we're like, hey, this is a perfect timing for it. So it's going to be a little different, wrestling coming off the Rumble. We thought it was a good time to kind of reset a little bit. So we're going to talk about WCW and a couple of the other promotions. But also, JP, maybe just explain how long you're out with power. Like, what was the damage? What have you seen in the neighborhood? I think it's kind of, it's something that, you couldn't watch Bob Backlund. I mean, you were the toughest of all things.
Like, so I'll just give like a rundown, kind of everything, how it happens for people that, maybe or live up north or will never experience anything like this. So they in Florida, they want you to go to work the day before. It's fucking stupid. It's ridiculous. So I go into work that morning and I'm gone in like 2 hours. I'm like, I'm not getting anything done. I'm leaving. So I just told them I'm leaving. They're like, oh, okay, you got to use sick time. I'm like, I'm not using sick time. I'm not doing that. So I didn't do that, and it was excused after all. But on the way home, like this is the day before the hurricane. You see, it's just like I don't even know how to explain it. Everyone's house is like boarded up. There's all these shutters on all these houses. Like it's like a ghost town. Like the stuff is out of everyone's yard. So like the whole, like I work a county away, and I'm the southernmost part of Hillsborough, so I'm almost to Manatee County. So it's almost like crossing 3 counties just on my commute to work. And it's just like a ghost town. Like everything's dead. It's crazy. And then there's like this mass panic that sets in with everybody. So like when the redneck types and stuff like that start fleeing and they start leaving the state, that's when I'm like, oh shit, did we just make a mistake and stay? Like we shouldn't have stayed. Like when those people are leaving, like, my friends that like usually help me in these kind of situations are leaving. But then my parents had to come stay with me because they live like a 55 and up community. They didn't feel safe there, so I was like, all right, we're just gonna ride this out. Huge mistake, I'll tell you that right now.
Was your parents sorry? Your parents?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they came over. They stayed with us. My dad like is a smoker, so he's like panicking. I told him Like, look, if you're gonna come stay with us, you're not smoking in our house, you're not doing this, whatever.
Oh no.
And every hour he's like, I gotta go outside. I'm like, there's literally a hurricane outside. I was like, if you go outside, I'm punching
You're
you
gonna
in the
blown
mouth.
away.
Yeah, I'm telling him, like, you're not opening my door. Like, we have shutters on the windows and everything for a reason. And it got to the point where it was like the eye was coming towards us. It was literally like 104 mile per hour winds, and he wanted to go outside. I'm like, dude, I'm about to give you some NyQuil, which I did. I gave him NyQuil. He passed out a little bit after that. So anyway, we're chilling here. Everybody's talking. It's a cool. The good thing about hurricanes is like the only good thing is like you get your family together and you kind of just kind of you forget about all the frivolous things and you just kind of have some family time. Well, we're all, tracking the storm, and I try to like not focus on it 100% the whole time. Like I don't like watching it 24/7 because like you're gonna have to deal with it anyway. So
yep.
We're watching it, and then our power goes out, and it's like 7:30. The storm, the hurricane, like is the bad part's not even at us yet, and we just lost power. And I'm like, gosh, shit! It's like this is bad if we're
Give me a
losing this
cigarette.
early.
You're like, give me a cigarette.
I've never smoked in my life. I told my dad, like, I can kind of see why you do this now. So now I'm like, shit. Well, me and my wife, my kids are gonna go upstairs. My parents, their dog, they're gonna stay downstairs. We need to be separate in this. Bad idea again. So upstairs, like the wind just sounded ridiculous because you're upstairs. Like you don't have like a base to kind of prevent the sound.
Yeah, it's swaying a little bit too, I'm
right.
sure.
Oh, so like the shutters are on the windows, right? Which I'm glad we did it. We did it early, but it makes it 10 times worse of an experience because your whole house is that much darker, and you can't like the sound it makes hitting the metal. It just is creepy as shit. So I kind of like put my hand on the window at one point, and the window's like bowing in. It was creepy. So like around 7:30, 8 o'clock, we lost power. And about an hour from that, like I'm trying to track it on my phone at that point, is when it touched down. It was like a Category 3 in Manatee County, which is like literally the next exit from where I live. So we're getting pummeled, right? It's like 8 o'clock. The last update I can see is, okay, we think it's going to move fast, and we think it's going to move north west. It didn't. It stayed on top of us, and I'm like, okay, my wife's freaking out, my daughter's freaking out. I'm like, hey, look, it'll be okay, it'll be over soon. And this is like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Saying it's moving fast. Yeah
I had no idea. So my daughter falls asleep, my son's asleep, like I'm good. My wife falls asleep. I'm freaking the fuck out now. Like I had to be tough this whole time. But now that it's just me, I'm like the only one awake in the house, I'm losing my shit. So I had to like walk around the house and stuff. It just sounded so scary. I told my wife, like, I'm like, look, we gotta get up, we gotta go in Jackson's room in the front of the house because it's so bad. Like, meanwhile, I'm sitting here waking everybody up so they can experience this terror. Like, and
I'm not going alone.
Right. Well, that's what I'm like. This I cannot even like think. So it gets to be about 10, 11 o'clock. Now I'm losing phone service, which has never happened before during a hurricane. Like I've always lost power, but I've never lost phone service. Now I can't even track the storm. So now I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? It's 11 o'clock. I thought this was about to be over. I can get signal like in and out. And I'm checking like the local news guy, hey, what's going on? And I see comments of like the town that's probably like 30 minutes south of me saying, okay, guys, we're loading up now. This is the worst is coming now. I'm like, holy shit. What do you mean the worst is coming now? I thought we were about to be out of
We're
this.
done, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 11:30. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I'm like, I'm not going to go to sleep. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just pacing back and forth. I'm going in my game room trying to have that ease my thoughts by looking at all the stuff in there. Like, it's wild. So my phone dies. My wife's phone dies. It's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's still whipping out there. And then the eye hit. So that's what tricks you is the eye hits, and you think everything's done. I'm like, oh, let's let the dog out. We go to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. We let the dog out, and the wind just intensifies like crazy. Like we had to run back inside. It's like now it's up to 100 again. Like it just goes from 0 to 100, and it's the most like it'll just mess your whole mind up. Like you just think everything's fine. Now you're like, this little band, when you look on the radar, it looks like, okay, like a little rainstorm, was actually the very worst part of the storm, was one little band at the end.
Okay.
And it went until 4 o'clock in the morning. So you're talking from like 7:30 when we lost power, and what was like I guess you would say a normal storm, it graduated into like the hurricane around 9:30, 10 o'clock, went all the way until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I finally fell asleep at 4, woke up at like 6. So I'm running on 2 hours sleep. Tell my daughter, let's go outside. Let's, walk this off a little bit and see what's going on. And the neighborhood was like devastated. It was crazy. Like, luckily, just like my fence came down and nothing even happened to my roof, fortunately. Like the neighbor's roof, the shingles came off. Yeah, it was, it wasn't, I'm blessed, definitely blessed, because like a lot of the neighborhood trees fell through the houses.
That's what I would be scared of.
Oh, so like so I'll fast forward a little bit. My parents go home. They don't have power for a day. They're good. We go to my in-laws, which is like 10 minutes around the corner, and they have a generator. So they got power. We can charge our phones. We can get some AC for a little bit, whatever. On my way over there, like everyone in their neighborhood lives on an acre. So like they have a nice house on an acre. There's a lot of like mobile homes on acres because there was more of a land thing. And a tree split one of the trailers directly in half, and the people were there when it happened. Like they were in the exact room that the tree fell through. I just can't imagine like how that had to be. And I mean, you see, like it was like what's the word I'm looking for, when like the end of the world kind of thing. What's the word they say? Armageddon. It was like
Armageddon.
Yeah, there was things all over the place in the streets. Like it was a literal like flooding. Like you would never expect this to happen, because like I said, I've been through so many hurricanes, and trees fall, whatever, like there's branches, there's some power lines down.
Yeah.
This was like what you see in the movies. This was like, I'm talking full busy streets underwater, trees all over, like trees in stores and stuff like that. It was insane. Not to mention like how the neighborhood reacted afterwards, where none of the gas stations had gas because the hurricane hit the port of Tampa. So like even the gas trucks can't even come into the port. So people were like, no joke, like going. So like I would set an alarm every 2 hours. Just to give an example, I would come back home because we had no power here. So I let my wife and kids stay at the in-laws because there's only one room. I was like, I'll just go home. I'll sleep in the heat by myself.
Oh yeah. I forgot about the heat. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going home. I got the windows cracked open. I leave my front door open. It's just me in the house. I set an alarm for every 2 hours to go check for gas because there's no gas. And I'm leaving 11 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, no gas. There's literally a police officer with a generator running the stoplights because they're out. And there's people like lined up to get gas that are like, one guy like asked the cop a question, and one of his friends walks up and steals the generator that the cop has for the street light. They found him, arrested him, like whatever. But it was like complete anarchy. Like it was just crazy. Like, then when the power came back on eventually 3 days later, it was like a scramble to get everything, salvage whatever food we could. And then we're still like in recovery mode. It doesn't feel normal yet. It's like been a week now. It's just starting to get there because my son's birthday's in a couple days. So like we kind of had to we had his party yesterday. We kind of had to settle in and kind of make sure, we put on our faces for the kids, It's just things aren't back to, they still aren't back to normal. It's just unbelievable how, and for the record, this was supposed to be a heavy thunderstorm as it moved in, and it turned into a Category 5 hurricane, then went to a 3 on landfall. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to go on a rambling streak there, but it was quite the experience, I'll say.
No, it's something, obviously in Chicago, I tell my kids, we'll never experience that. So it's kind of cool to get from the level. I know my father-in-law stood through one of the ones in Tampa area, and he stood through one of the ones in Tampa, and he that was the problem. He lost power. He's like, oh, it's not that bad. And then he's like, the air conditioning. He's like, I forgot about that. And that's where he started panicking. Like, he was just like, he's like, I mean, he's older than, he's like, I don't use a cell phone. Like, I could go without TV, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was the air conditioning.
No,
That got him.
that's what it is. So like, I look. I'm gonna be honest. I grew up. I wasn't the most. We were kind of poor. I've lost power before, right?
Yeah.
Like that. That's nothing to me. I can do that. Like my kids can't do it. They're kind of spoiled.
Yeah.
Like we're in a little bit different world, but it's the heat. It's like it's the fact that it's like 79 at night. And,
Yep, it
and
never
you're trying
cools
to
out,
lay
yeah.
down. Yeah, it's just. It's crazy, man. And then what it does to people too, like people are going crazy, like literally going crazy because they don't have anything to entertain themselves. They don't, they don't know when they're going to go to work. They don't know what's going on. It's just, yeah, it's a wild one, man. It's something I hope nobody has to experience. I know maybe I don't know, Jake lives in like Louisiana, so maybe I don't know if he's experienced like a direct hit like this.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a different world, man. I'm telling you, next time even a Category 1 approaches, I'm leaving. You're going
leaving?
somewhere. Yeah,
Follow the hillbillies. Once the hillbillies start
dude,
leaving, that.
And that's why I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm like, wait, you're not staying? I told them because like my wife's best friend, they own a tree cutting business. Like that's what they do. And I'm like, wait, you guys aren't staying? They're like, no, we left Monday night. I'm like, why the fuck didn't you tell me this? Like, I'm over here thinking you guys are good. We're staying too. Like
the tree guy's staying.
Yeah, it's something else, man. So yeah, it's as real as the movies make it sound. All that stuff. It's that real. It's just scary. There's something called a hurricane howl. The way the wind whips.
Got it.
And that is a noise that you will never forget if you hear. I hope you never have to hear it, but yeah,
probably not.
Let's hope not.
Maybe when I'm 80 or 100 living down in Florida.
Yeah.
Great. When did the work make you go back? Like during the hurricane, or they give you a couple days out? They understood, or they lost power too.
So this is what pissed me off, right? So we have a hurricane hotline, and they text you, and they text us Wednesday night. Oh, Thursday we're opening at 9 a.m. I'm like, well, suck my dick. I'm not going to work on Thursday. Yeah. I'm not going in. Then they text back like when we got service. Oh, Thursday we're closed, but Friday we're open. I'm like, I don't have power. My fence is down. I'm not going to work. Like I'm not doing that. So then you had to use time for that, which was ridiculous because I think like 15% of the staff showed up that day, which is one thing. But yeah, it's just that whole side of it I can't stand. Like they don't look at the human aspect of it. They just look at we're Q4. We have to push. Like I don't give a shit about it just really it soured me on like because a lot of people were even in worse situations where they made like like I get it, if you're in the health field you have to stay, but like they were like forcing them to stay and like stay in the building during the hurricane and it's just it's craziness, man.
Yeah. Well, glad you're in one piece. Glad the family's all safe. And
man, I appreciate it. And yourself and everybody in the chat and everything was checking in. That was cool. That helped keep me sane a little bit. So.
Yeah, you're his play-by-play, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure his phone's dead, or he's dead. It's one or the other.
I mean, hey,
he just disappeared. So
right. If this is my ghost talking to a podcast, the ratings are gonna be through the roof. So
yes. All right. Let's move on. Well, again, glad you're safe, and thanks for sharing. It's very good to hear about, because it's definitely a different world experience.
Right.
So we thought we would, since JP was out power most of the time, wasn't able to watch the Raws and thing. Like I said, we want to do this for a while, but this is a perfect time. We thought we would catch up with some WCW, ECW, some of the other promotions around. So for this time, we're just going to walk through WCW at the time, at the landscape of '94, right? So WCW '94 was a weird time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of not in the best position to begin the year. And then all of a sudden, Hulk Hogan shows up right around King of the Ring '94, signs with WCW. And it basically changes the promotion, right? That I think Nitro and Scott Hall. I think the three things kind of change. But this was the first one, right? And so Hogan signs in '94. They start right away with a big bash, right, with Flair and Hogan. To start. So, the Dream WrestleMania 8 match finally shows up. And then after that, it kind of gets a little interesting, right? Hogan starts bringing in some of his guys, his friends, starts getting them a job, and kind of changes the promotion, whether good or bad. But it definitely does change the way that everyone looks at WCW. So as we end the year, all of a sudden jumping the queue is the Butcher in a pretty cool
Cool.
segment, right? And a pretty cool idea, but then you got to deal with Beefcake Wrestling. But all of a sudden you get Butcher and you got Avalanche or, Earthquake showing up. Jimmy Hart's involved a ton. So you kind of have this thing where WCW is now moving towards all of Hogan's boys into the promotion and kind of pushing out the guys of, the guys we've seen before, right? Sting, Vader, Flair, they're kind of getting pushed aside. So anything you want to bring up on kind of 94 where WCW sits at the time?
Yeah. So growing up in the South, Florida's not really the South, but you get what I mean. WCW is a big deal down here. People took WCW seriously, like when it was a Southern promotion. This kind of killed that for a lot of people, but then it also created a lot more new fans, I would say. Like
yes,
that's the dichotomy you have to look at it. Like they made a business decision instead of like a fan friendly decision, which ultimately was their is kind of like their Phoenix, and it was also their crash, I guess you could say. So WCW, the first half of the year, I loved Dustin Rhodes. I loved the Stud Stable. I loved what Cactus and Kevin Sullivan, the Nasties, were doing. Like their pay-per-view run from like Super Brawl till Slamboree was fantastic. Like 94 was awesome. Vader was probably the best heel in the world, America at least at the time. Then they made the decision to go all in for Hogan. And while I think it ruined the WCW that I loved, it created eventually an even better WCW. So I guess this year and a half was worth it. Flair takes a back seat, which was very professional of him to do. He was the one that kind of lobbied for Hogan as well, knowing that it's going to take a little bit of the spotlight from him, but also give him the dance partner he needs. I think the one guy that's really kills besides Vader as far as not being the dominant heel anymore is Sting.
Yep.
Sting's clearly the face of the company. Sting is the Bret Hart Ultimate Warrior of WCW. And now Hogan comes in and just snatches that spotlight away. So he kind of has to play second fiddle.
Third or fourth, because Duggan and all these other guys.
And that's the other one I was going to get to is Duggan. Right? That one pissed me off so bad. So Steve Austin is this great wrestler on the come up. He does the whole Steamboat has a forfeit because of injury. So Austin doesn't have to defend the title, but then they tell him, "Oh wait, but you have an opponent," and Duggan just comes out and squashes him and takes the belt. And Austin was never the same after that. So I was kind of glad when Vader beat his ass at Starrcade, but it's one thing to get your cronies in there, Duggan, Barber, Earthquake. Bossman was already in there, but he's kind of a Hogan guy. Savage comes in at the end of the year, but then to just instantly supplant everybody in the promotion, it just kind of sucked. I don't know. I get why they did it. It was smart of them to do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm more speaking on the emotional fan side of it.
Yep.
But it just sucked because I liked having two completely different promotions. I like that WWF and WCW were completely different flavors as far as the Southern stuff and more work rate, and then you get WWF was the show, but now WCW is trying their hand at that, which is it's just weird that WCW kind of had their New Generation era before WWF, when Flair left. They had to go to Dustin Rhodes, Austin, Vader, Sting. They did their youth movement first, and then now they're getting Hogan and Savage and Beefcake and these Duggan, these older guys. So I don't know. I mean. As far as the company as a whole goes, I feel week to week they're probably still better than WWF at this point, just because there's more established guys, more established. Regal was another good guy that was good to watch.
So, the Blue Bloods. Yep.
The Blue, and that's the thing. Their tag team scene smokes WWF at this time. You got Cactus and Sullivan, Pretty Wonderful, Harlem Heat, Nasty Boys, Stars and Stripes, which
We got
you
well
know,
done. WWF's got
what
well done. I mean,
and that's their saving grace, but they don't have much after that. So
bushwhackers.
yeah, I don't know. Like, what did you would you have said that WCW was better in '94 than WWF, or what did you like better?
I mean, I was until kind of Hogan got on board.
Hmm.
See in the North, like WCW wasn't found. Like TBS was supplanted by WGN. So like DBS was the Southern WGN, right? So I didn't watch the Braves games. I didn't
Hmm.
watch, South Television. So until Hogan got a game, I had started watching a little bit before that because, like, again, I could feel the dip in WWF's product. Like it just wasn't as good.
Yeah.
So I started coming to WCW, but like anything pre like 93 I've never seen, right? It's
Oh
like a
wow.
kid. Like as a kid, right? Like
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
I probably
yeah.
watched
That's
Judd
true.
Network.
That's
Yeah.
probably about the same for me.
Right.
Yeah.
We went to the video store, there were zero WCW videos.
Oh,
Like
really?
until NWO came. There's zero. Like it was all WF on the shelves. So it was like hard to get into, right?
Huh.
And Hogan helped that, right? Like I think Saturday night maybe went 2 hours. It just bigger profile, right?
Yeah.
That it brought. I think looking back, on this time, it is a time where it's like you're just watching is like, oh, that's Hogan's buddy, that's Hogan's buddy, that's how it's just like
Hmm.
overwhelms the promotion for a while until they kind of about face, right? I mean, we're going to see that a lot in '95 with the Dungeon of Doom, which is comically hilarious now,
Yeah.
but at the time it was just like, okay, this is just Hogan's promotion right now.
Hmm.
And you can kind of see that with the Horsemen taking back seats, and like you said, Sting and even Vader, and they all just kind of get fed up with it. Most of the guys, right? A couple guys stay, but most of them just kind of get fed up with it. So it's good. I mean, rewatching it, there's stuff that's fine. It's just like the stuff like Brutus Beefcake. The storyline is great. Like the idea
Yeah.
of like an old friend coming through, but then you watch the match and it's atrocious. And it's like this guy, Avalanche, can't beat him, but the Barber is going to beat him. So it just kind of
Right.
got a little silly from that standpoint.
Well, that was like placating Hogan, right? Like that was
Right. Yep.
them saying. I mean, they even brought in Jimmy Hart, Bobby Heenan.
Yep.
Like, it was,
Mean
1989
Gene.
WWF.
Mean Gene.
Yeah, Mean Gene. Yeah,
Mean
it's
Gene.
like, come on, like this. Exactly. So it was. I still like it. Like I like the Hogan era of WCW. Like I still find it entertaining, but it just wasn't WCW, and it took a little bit to
Yeah.
kind of, I guess, get the taste out of your mouth. Like to figure it out. But
you're 1,000% right on the tag division. I mean, I think that's one thing that's kind of sad. The in ring is a better definitely, and then I think the tag division. It's just there's a lot of great teams coming up.
I love their tag
And
division.
even the Nasty Boys do pretty well here. I mean, they were WCW team right before. They kind of most people know them from WWF because of their title run and stuff, but they were pretty solid in the pre WWF time, and then I think they really up their game here the second time around for a while, right? I got everything kind of flips at the NWO, but I think early on they're kind of good in this brawling with the Harlem Heat and stuff. That match is pretty decent, a little long, but it's arcade. But I think their tag division is just way ahead of what WWF is bringing at the time.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the pieces just have to find their way and kind of fit in, like get in where they fit in. Like the whole like Sullivan, right? Sullivan comes in and he's kind of, orchestrating like being the lead heel, but he's also feuding with Dave Sullivan, and that's one of the worst. Oh my God,
Evad.
feuds. Yes, that was so terrible. Like I hated that storyline so much. So while WCW had like a lot of redeeming qualities, they had stuff like that also that they weren't exempt from. So when like people say, "Oh, WWF is the only occupational gimmick, wrestle crap stuff," WCW had their
Oh, it's so much. Well, I mean, Oz and BK Wall Street, or I forget what his name was, Michael Wall Street, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you got RoboCop showing up in a pay per view.
Right.
I mean, that's one thing I think that like WCW fans are like, oh, that was so pure and true. It's like watch the Chamber of Horrors match and tell me that's pure.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I'll always argue back on that. Like they were both fighting for a cartoon, youth audience. So they were both doing stuff like that. Like,
right.
Like if you want to tell me ECW wasn't doing that, then yeah, I get it. But
yeah,
like WCW had their fair share of exploitive attempts. So.
Yep.
But yeah, I like that we're looking at this stuff too. Like like just like in little chunks at least. because it does give you like a better either appreciation for what you're watching, or just it kind of like puts things into context for the whole wrestling scene. Because as kids, or even as adults or whatever, you're not just watching one promotion for the most part. You're kind of like dipping into other aspects too. So.
Yeah, and I think one thing about it, I think it shows that WWF made the right decision in moving away from Hogan, because I think it would have bogged down the promotion. Now, I don't think they find their footing the right way in '95, but I think well, you might disagree, but I mean, from a rating standpoint, right? I think it was good for them to get away. I don't think they found how to replace him, but I think if they would have kept him and just kept bogging down everything, it would have really made the promotion rough, because it would just been Hogan's promotion just running him out of business. Now, I think he's fresh in WCW, even though some of the feuds aren't. I think he brings, like you said, a new audience. They can, try different things that hit and don't hit, right? But that, like everyone always talks, oh, the cruiserweights are so great. Those would have never hits had Hogan not been there, right? Like, let's be honest, those they would have not got the time on TNT. They would have not got, the promotion. So Hogan needs to be there, and I think it serves its purpose. But it really shows that, like, probably WWF was the right move to move away from Hogan. I think they made their own missteps, but I think to move away from Hogan was the smart decision.
Well, they needed competition to push themselves. Like if they would have stayed in the same holding pattern with Hogan, then WCW also stays in the same holding pattern with Flair and Sting, and it just stays the same the whole time. So Hogan leaving created both, like pushed both to be different. So that just made it better for everybody else, for the fans especially.
Yep. Anything surprising in '94? Anything they kind of missed? I know we did a lot of high level stuff, but we just kind of want to catch up, and I think we'll do this yearly. But anything else surprising that you think is good to bring up?
Yeah, there's a feud between Larry Zbyszko and William or Steven Regal that was awesome. Like it comes out of nowhere when you're watching the TV. Like Zbyszko's like this announcer, and Regal just keeps pestering them, and they end up having some pretty great TV matches. And I'm not like the biggest Larry Zbyszko guy. A huge Regal guy, but like that feud was awesome. I feel like I've said before, the tag scene was awesome. Vader was still pretty solid in '94. I feel like like he does get squandered in '95. Obviously, just gets shut all the way down. But Dustin Rhodes and Vader, that match at the Clash, I think it's in November. Such a good out of nowhere like sprint, and just a couple highlights there that I would throw out.
Yeah, I mean the Horsemen kind of get a little bit reinvented here and push.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
I mean, I think they kind of get but they're definitely second fiddle, right? They're no longer in the War Games matches, as we'll see in '95. Like I think they're in the first like 5 War Games, right? It feels like it, and they kind of get pushed down second, but they do kind of have their own storylines. They like we said, they weave Flair in for the dream match of Bash the Beach, but then after that they kind of end up in their own situation. So I think they get some build up there, and then like you said, some of the guys. I think it's it takes 2 years, but you start seeing Triple H D-push, and like you said, Austin and Vader and Cactus Jack kind of all start D-push. I think it's not right away, right? It takes 2 or 3 years, but the guys that are the mainstays of the Attitude Era. Kind of getting deep pushed and then find their way out. But
that's the trade, right? So that's WWF's going to give you Savage and Hogan and Earthquake, but then because those spots that were filled by Austin and Gold Dust, who would become Gold Dust. Cactus Jack.
Marrow
even, Pillman eventually. Those guys got shunted down the card, so now they got to go to the WWF. So that just ended up being a win for the WWF as well, because they're getting the youth guys that they can create. They show they can create guys with Hall and Nash. They made them stars, so their ability to do that worked out. And like I said, it's just like anytime companies can flip rosters and it's just fresh for the fans, it's always fun to see, I guess.
Yep, it was definitely. Yep, which is what the beginning of the NWO was like. Oh my God, it's they're flipping the roster with WWF stars, right? I mean, that's really what drove it. I think if not or Hall or Nash weren't from WWF, that recently, that angle doesn't take off, right?
Exactly.
But it takes off because it's like, man, there's the new rosters coming in, right, to fight them. So totally agree. What about some of the other promotions? You're way more in tune to those things than I am. So why don't you give some status updates on a couple of the other big promotions?
So just just to talk basically in the same month that we're in right now. So in January '95, I'll go with ECW first. '95 is probably their best year. '96 might be my favorite year of ECW, because it's a little bit more refined. But '95, very good year in ECW. Like right now, as far as like January goes, Douglas is the champion. He's got the triple threat with him, Benoit Malenko, which is a really awesome group. You got the split of the Bad Breed, which is Axel and Ian Rotten, which turns into like an insane blood feud. You got Too Cold Scorpio, who's killing it. Like he's putting on great matches. Sandman's still hanging around. You don't quite have Taz in the form as you would know him yet. So like '95, or especially early on, is a lot about like Shane Douglas and just kind of like becoming the edgy product. It's
when did they switch? When did they switch to ECW? Like to Extreme?
'94.
'94.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like in the mid '94, like when he throws down the belt.
Yep.
Just gets himself out. They get out of the NWA. They're no longer Eastern anymore. So that's like mid '94.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, they're already kind of your grunge promotion right now. Oh, another thing. Speaking of that, Raven debuts in January as well. So if you've never seen the debut of Raven in ECW, you have to see it, because if you're watching like '94 and you know Scotty Flamingo, he still kind of looks like Scotty Flamingo facially, like his characteristics. So it's kind of a little bit of a mess with you a little bit, but it's such a great contrast of a character. And Stevie Richards plays so well off of him, like as the comedy act. So yeah, ECW.
And crazy or different that he's Johnny Polo just recently, right? I mean, that's just such a.
Yeah. And they even mention it. Like they even mention the Scotty Flamingo, Johnny Polo stuff, so they don't like hide from it, which is something I always loved about ECW. It's just like '95 is so good in ECW. It's week to week. It's just the best promotion to watch. So very good stuff there. Then you go down south a little bit to like USWA, where like PG-13 is kind of like the main focal point of the promotion. Like Lawler dips in and out. He's obviously with the WWF also, but he's not the main guy there. Brian Christopher's still a big impact, but like the big feud is PG-13 versus Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert, which is really good stuff. Like it's really good tag. Like it was some of the highest drawing houses in Memphis for a while. Like I know Eddie Gilbert dying like messes it up for a little bit because Doug Gilbert leaves for a little bit, but really good stuff between those two. Like a really good blood feud. And then in Smoky Mountain, like the main deal right now is the Gangstas versus Jim Cornette. So if you want to talk about like edgy, like I don't think people could handle it today how edgy it was. With what the Gangsters were doing. Like they were doing like affirmative action where they only got the 2 count instead of a 3. Like yeah, like it was crazy stuff. Like they're feuding with Cornette and they're talking about, they're shouting out OJ for killing a white woman. It's crazy stuff. Like it's what the Nation of Domination probably wanted to be, but they weren't there. They weren't like quite attitude enough yet.
Yeah. They do some. There's definitely some things where they definitely.
Right.
But as they pick up the ratings, all of a sudden that's a flipping way.
Yeah. So this is Cornette at his best. He's like in a babyface role, which was different. He begs to get the Heavenly Bodies reinstated to protect him from the Gangsters because the Gangsters take out the Rock and Roll Express. New Jack is crazy good on the mic in this era. Like he is, like you would have, if he wasn't so dangerous in the ring. Like and such a liability, the WWF would have scooped him up in a heartbeat, but obviously they can't have that, on their national TV. So that's just a little glimpse of like what's going down south, and then with ECW, like we can do this, either after like one of the big 5 or just whenever it calls for it, I guess, and kind of just check in with the other promotions time to time.
Yeah, and I think especially. Over the next year, right? They will really start intermixing, right? Like WWF really isn't taking much ECW talent, right? I mean, that I could think of like in 93, 94, they really don't take much, right?
No, it will be in 95 though.
But 95 and 96, it's like they all kind of go to WWF. And I mean, I know you didn't talk about it, but a lot of guys win a stepping stone from WWF to WCW, ECW, right? ECW, right? Like a lot of guys did that. We kind of talked a lot more about Smoky Mountain, right? Because Jim Cornette is such interwoven, right? You mentioned Heavenly Bodies. We know we have the Rock and Roll Express in a Survivor Series match. So I think these promotions get interweaving so much in the next couple months that we should, kind of bring them up here and there. We might look at a couple pay-per-views as well to do. I think there's probably some, that probably to cause some review and might be good to kind of catch up, because again, the next, and the rest of the new gen, these three or four promotions really kind of get interwoven together, and they have a lot of storylines that build off of each other, especially as we hit into 96, like I said, about the NWO. But there's other stuff, right? ECW. I mean, ECW shows up at a Raw, a little bit distant future from ours, but it's all that. So, I think good to check in on their promotions. Like I said, we'll do this every once in a while. We haven't set a schedule or anything, but I think it'll be kind of cool to kind of check in on where people are that came from WWF, or will be coming to the WWF throughout the new generation period. So I think that's it for this time, unless you have anything else you wanted to add.
No, I think we're good.
All right, man. Well, again, glad to hear JP is safe and sound. We'll be back next week with 2 Raws, 2 Superstars most likely, and then keep moving along to our march to WrestleMania 11. It's going to start heating up. LT's ready for his WrestleMania payday. So we're going to have a lot of build up real quick for this, big celebrity mania that comes about from that shove from Bam Bam Bigelow. So thanks everyone for listening, rating, and reviewing. Hope everyone enjoyed this different episode, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.